Part of the reason for creating reusable content is so that you have documents that are well structured, that are fairly consistent. So I want to spend a few moments on structure. I want to talk to you about section breaks. When you have a document, this is a portrait sheet of paper, top to bottom 8.5 by 11, so 8.5 width, 11 height. What if I wanted to create a newsletter? In that newsletter, what if I wanted to have a single column and multiple columns? For example, I have a paragraph. I'm just going to copy and paste that paragraph. And now what I want is I want information to go into 2 columns, as though I were going to insert a table and place information this way. Now certainly you can do that, and sometimes your tables can help with layout. But should you use a table for layout, that may not be the best option. So if you want something that clearly reads the right way as well, you could use a section break to almost get the same effect. So if I paste in this, and it didn't have room on the page, and I'll just remove some of this, but I just wanted you to see my options here. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with sections to make sure that we can provide something that does a single column and then maybe multiple columns on the same page. So we're going to call that a same page or a continuous section. So I'm going to create a new document. In this document, I'm going to either just type information, paste that a few times, so that will be my single column. Here's some information, blah, blah, blah. Now what I want to do, I always want to press enter to kind of move away from that content. And I'm going to go to layout, and I'm going to create what's called a continuous section break. So under breaks, I'm going to choose continuous. Now I'm going to actually go to the home tab so I can show you what just happened. It created a continuous section break. This is another section in the document. This is section 1. This one is section 2. In order to see that, I'm going to right-click on my status bar, and I'm going to turn on sections. So now you can see I'm in section 2, and now I'm in section 1, if you see that at the bottom of the screen. So in section 2, I actually want 2 columns. So I'm going to go to the layout option. I'm going to choose columns, and I'm going to choose 2. Because I was in section breaks, it might be difficult to see, but here's the first option, section 1, single column. Look at my ruler. I'm going to click in section 2. Look at my ruler, 2 columns. So now if I paste just a few times, and then I'll insert a column break simply so you can see me navigate to the next column. Now I have the opportunity with what's called a continuous section break to have 2 different types of text without a table layout, where the table I have to very specifically put content in one area or the next. I can have this still flow if I want it to. So it's a single column, multiple column, page, and that was using continuous columns. And I'll do that again for you. I have content. I always press enter. I go to layout, breaks, continuous. Now I'm in section 2, says so right down here. Now I'm going to go to my columns, and maybe I choose 3 columns this time. Look at the ruler. I can paste, and simply so you can see it fall to the next column, I'm going to insert a column break. And here I went from a single column to multiple columns. So now let's show you where I can add portrait and landscape pages together. You know, sometimes if I want, I'm going to create a new document here. If I have a document and I want to create a table, so here's a document that just has some content. But now I want to create a table. So even when I do insert table, let's say that table is, I don't know, 6 columns wide. Well, those columns aren't very big. and I might choose to use more space. So what I want to do is I'm going to press Enter. I'm going to create a page break, and I want to make this landscape. But if I go up to Layout and I choose the orientation and make it landscape, the entire document becomes landscape, and that's not what I want. I want my first page to be portrait, regular 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper. The table, perhaps I want on a second page in a landscape document, and then maybe I want a third page back to portrait. We're going to use sections for that too. Those are next page sections. So I'm going to create a new document. I'm keeping my show height on so you can see these section breaks created. So I want my portrait sheet of paper, so I'm going to stick with that. I'm just going to press Enter to always move down. I'm going to go to Layout, Breaks, Next Page Section Break, which does create a different page. I'm going to press Enter just to get myself off that page. I'm going to go to Breaks. I'm going to choose another next page. Now, right now I have 3 pages, all portrait. So I'm going to click in this page. I'm going to have content, regular content. In this page I want a table, but I want the table to be landscape. So now, because I'm in a section break, if I go to Orientation and choose Landscape, just that page is landscape. So now I can safely insert a table . 6 columns wide, several rows. I'm just tapping the tab key to get several rows. And then I can come back to my third page and keep inserting content. So I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see this. I have a portrait page, a landscape page, and a portrait page. Now, how is that possible? Well, here's the thing that you may not have noticed when you create margins and things like that. Normally, you're used to creating margins. If I go up to Layout and I'll choose Margins, and I go to Custom Margins. By default, this Apply To document, if you don't have sections, always says Whole Document. But the minute you have sections, all of these options always say Apply To this section. That has to do with paper, that has to do with layout. And that can be your alignment and things of that nature as well. So it's pretty handy to see that multiple sections by default are like their very own document. I can even go to my second page section and change just the margins for that section, because by default I'm on this section only. If I wanted to change that, then I do have to go into something like Custom Margins and make sure I apply them to the whole document. And then I could in fact choose whatever margins I want. So now I did this to whole document. The entire document's margins are adjusted. So the 2 section breaks that we went over were continuous section breaks, where we have maybe a single column going to multiple columns or multiple columns going to single columns. And then also next page section breaks, where you're able to treat each page like its own document, whether it has its own margins or its own orientation and things of that nature.